The Callisto Protocol is finally here, and apparently people are hating it. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. I had a really good time with it. I mean, clearly it's not a perfect game, it's hard to find those, but I think it's really fun and doesn't deserve the amount of flack it's caught, besides for the performance issues, because those have been pretty bad. If you're seeing this in the far future, hopefully they're all resolved by now. And if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, that's probably for the best. Also, I won't be showing the brutal deaths because I don't want to get age-gated. But like I've said before, these videos aren't really reviews. Even though I like screeching my opinions as I go, these are mostly about my journey going after achievements, usually hard ones. And the toughest one the Callisto Protocol has right now is the protocol is about life, which you get for completing the game on its hardest difficulty called Maximum Security. Now, you might be wondering what I mean by the hardest right now, and that's because they plan on adding at least one new difficulty to the game, a hardcore mode, my favorite. And sometimes with new content, we get new achievements, and I absolutely plan on playing the new difficulty. We'll just have to see if it's worth a video. Chapter 1 is story setup and a basic controls tutorial. Really not a lot going on here, but this does give me time to mention that the story in Callisto Protocol is pretty much what you'd expect from a horror game in like 2010 or something. Also, my recordings of the first few chapters of this game are before they dropped a patch to help with in-game frame rates, so you might notice a bit of chunk here and there until later. Ultimately, the chunkiness didn't really affect my gameplay in any meaningful way, it just looked really bad, so sorry. Chapter 2 is where the game really begins, and by really begins, I mean there's a long-ass tutorial. Seriously, this whole chapter is like an hour plus if you're taking your time to like look around, loot, and learn. And even then, you still have some tutorial shenanigans in the next chapter. But first things first, you get a shiv. The shiv opens doors and lets you stealth take down some enemies. Yeah, stealth is a mechanic in this game, and just wait until we get to the forced stealth section in chapter 6. I wish I could say forced with like heavy quotation marks around it. You'll see why later. Right after you get the shiv is the combat tutorial, and this is a spot where I hear people kind of struggle with the game. I mean, not the tutorial specifically, but some of the melee mechanics. So the main combat loop in this game is focused around beating the shit out of the biophages, those are what the enemies are called, with a stun baton. You start with a crowbar, but anyways. Dodging is a huge part of this and 100% necessary to have success. You can block, but it's pretty limited in its usefulness in combat since you still take damage, albeit reduced. So dodging is the best option, and it's done by literally just holding left or right when you're being attacked. The only thing is you have to alternate the direction after your initial dodge, so you can't dodge left twice in a row, for example. Now, I guess with controllers, it's kind of jank because you can accidentally hold a stick at an angle and you won't dodge. That sounds really annoying, and I hope they give you guys a fix because it's really easy on keyboard and mouse. For now, combat is just swinging away when they leave openings. Biophages with 2 arms will usually swing 2 or 3 times, and if you take an arm off one of these dudes, they'll only be swinging once. Soon after, there's a small stealth tutorial where we're ducking a robot with a super sexy voice who will absolutely blow us out if he sees us, but we'll get revenge later, don't worry. The robot will eventually be big chillin' at the end of a hall, and this lets us explore around a bit. Whenever there was an opportunity to get off the beaten path and search for loot, I did it. I'm just not going to stop and mention it every time it happens. Eventually, we get our sweet little baby, the stun baton, and then Sam Witwer goes through a window. Surely that's the last we'll see of him. At the start of chapter 3, we are immediately introduced to the Reforge and the hand cannon. So the Reforge is the Callisto Protocol's version of the store and upgrade bench, just rolled into one. Once you have a weapon, you can see its entire upgrade tree and costs in the Reforge, so you can kind of map out what you're interested in doing. But some upgrades are definitely better than others. For example, don't ever get any of the blocking upgrades on the stun baton. Seriously, they're a waste of money. I mean, you do find stuff all around Black Iron Prison to sell at the Reforge, but early on your inventory is limited to 6 slots, not including weapons and tools. So you might find yourself ferrying some stuff back and forth if your pockets are full. Usually it's worth it though, because some of these upgrades are pretty rad. Alright, so we get the hand cannon here as well, and it was my go-to gun for the entire run. Upgrade-wise, it's probably worth fully upgrading, but you could probably also get away with not getting the final upgrade. An explosive secondary fire that uses up 5 shots for the price of 1. I found it useful in a few situations, but not really necessary. But you know what I think is necessary? Shooting guys in this game. So like I said, the combat is mainly melee focused, but you can use whatever gun you have equipped for quick shots, which lets you string together longer melee combos and blast off limbs. But I mean, if you want, you can also just shoot guys in the kneecaps. After some time with with the pistol, we get our final essential tool, the GRP, also known as the grip. This thing is the best. I fucking love the grip. Think of it as a kinesis stasis hybrid that only works on one thing at a time, but my god, does it work wonders. Anything you can pick up with it, you can throw. This includes enemies, and there's a lot of stuff to throw them into. Now, I've had some wonky pickups before where it doesn't grab exactly what I'm aiming at, but that was maybe only a few times across the entire game. Upgrade-wise, capacity is overall the most important thing to juice on this baby, but I'd also suggest getting the first velocity upgrade pretty early on since it helps getting enemies onto spikes and into fans. After your capacity is maxed though, you probably want to go into recharge rate because the grip runs on batteries. And while you could absolutely stand around between encounters if you want to save on supplies and wait for a recharge, I don't do that because I'm impatient. Other highlights of this chapter include these long neck dudes that I swear to god the game likes to put in spots that are 99% guaranteed to dish out a fat suck. So with all the basic game mechanic tutorials out of the way, you get to put all the pieces of the combat puzzle together when you enter the shoe, which is like some prisony shippy thingy. So this is like the first kind of arena type area in the game, and if you struggled here, that's absolutely fine. I know I did for a bit. Well, goddamn. The game really wants you to figure out the combat here. I try to think of combat in the Callisto Protocol kind of like the combat in Doom Eternal. I mean, obviously this isn't a fast-paced FPS, but in both games you have a bunch of different tools that you should utilize for a bunch of different situations. Also in both games, you have situations where you need to prioritize certain enemies. Clearly you want to beat the shit out of dudes with the stun baton as your main source of damage, but you should be using the grip as much as possible to throw guys into environmental kills or just to make room so you don't get swarmed. Apparently people are saying that the combat falls apart when you're facing more than one biophage at a time. This only happens if you're not using what the game gives you or if you're in a really shitty position, both of which happen to me multiple times. When you're surrounded, enemies will often stand aside and wait very politely for their turn, but there are instances where multiple attacks will come your way, and this might be the only situation where blocking comes in handy. If you commit to a melee attack without waiting for an opening or creating your own, of course you're gonna get punished. Basically what I'm trying to say here is that if you're struggling with the combat beyond using a controller, be patient and try to learn it. Don't rush in with your hog out or you'll probably get clapped. Some story stuff goes on for a bit, which isn't really worth mentioning because 90% of the story is dropped on you in the final hour of the game. And then there's a saw trap, or maybe we call them evil within traps now. Either way, don't touch that shit. The first half of chapter 4 takes place in a water treatment sewer type area that can be a little hard to navigate. We're introduced to a new enemy type here that can stealth and climb on walls. All right, I'll be there in a second. I feel like it wasn't supposed to freeze frame there, and it was supposed to pull the guy away. I mostly just shoot these guys because whenever I get too close to them, I tend to get mounted. Biophages start mutating in this chapter as well, sometimes sprouting tentacles when you're dishing out beatdowns. And if you don't kill them immediately, they grow their limbs back and beef up. The cure for this is shooting them in the tentaclicity. It might take a shot or two to put them down. Eventually, we get flushed down a shit pipe, which kind of reminds me of being a kid and not closing my mouth when I went down a water slide. And yes, if you hit anything directly on the way down, you're gonna die. Anyways, now we're in a little oxygen tree dome type area with a brobot patrolling around. So I decided to fuck around and find out what happens when you mess with these guys. It went as expected.
Inmate. Resuming.
But it also turns out there's an achievement for killing one of these dudes. The icing on the cake here is that they drop an item worth a good bit of money as well. That was easy. A decoder? It sells for 500 bucks? God damn, dude. All right. There's a very trivial combat bit right at the end of the chapter where you can turn all the enemies into a red mist. Ew. When you're done with your blood shower, Sam Witwer shows up looking like he needs to exfoliate his pores. This is approximately the halfway point through the game if we're going by chapter numbers. So if you made it this far into the video, I'd really appreciate it if you sauced me a like or a sub. It helps me keep making these videos. In chapter 5, we get a fancy new suit that doubles our inventory spaces from 6 to 12 and juices up our health a bit. Unfortunately, there's no upgrades for the suit though, you just sort of get it. So I guess that's a missed opportunity maybe. Elias, that dude who gave us the shiv back in chapter 2, is dead now. Clearly, he's not Canadian because the cold fucked him up pretty quick. Also, maybe the lack of oxygen. Who knows? There's a bit of a snow brawl here, and then we get a new enemy type that explodes, which is essentially the popcorn chicken babies from Dead Space. So with Elias dead, Danny is our new BFF, and to cement our friendship, she gives us a shotgun. Upgrade-wise for the shotgun, it's worth to grab everything except its final upgrade. There's more story stuff going on here, really not a whole lot of consequence, and then another Dead Space moment where we're doing our best Tom Petty impression while the game lights my GPU on fire and I get GoldenEye 64 explosion tier frame rates. Chapter 6 has the forced stealth section that apparently every other game needs. There's a new type of enemy that's blind and will react to sound. Does that sound familiar to you? We're trying to navigate all these blind guys to get to a switch to turn the power on for a tram, and I was kidding. Stealth actually isn't forced at all. I mean, you could if you wanted to, or you could grip and tear. When the power's on, we gotta head back the way we came, but I had my fill of murder, so I just ran past everyone. The tram has a load of supplies on it, and that's because we're hit with wave after wave of dudes. The thing is, each wave only spawns on one of 4 sides, so you can just fucking yeet them into the void because you also get like 4 grip batteries here. Once all the waves are down, it's time for our very first boss fight, which isn't great. Now this big dude might have 2 heads, but he doesn't use either of them because he is as dumb as shit. We can just run him around this box infinitely. If he does hit us though, it's a one-shot. And I learned after this fight that when he's down on his knees, you're actually supposed to melee him, but I just shot him until he died. So he shows up 3 more times before the end of the game, and it's the same deal each time. You'll see. We're in the home stretch now with Chapter 7, where we're in an old town riddled with biophages. Lucky for us, this town has big spiky walls, so I reckon you can figure out what I did here. After exploring the town, we're fighting another big boy. This time I tried to see if I could melee him, and you super can't. You can dodge his attacks, but as soon as you go to give him the electric tickle, he will bitch slap you mid-combo and wreck your shit. I tested this out for a while just to see what's all possible here, but yeah, you gotta do range damage and then melee him when he's on his knees. Not a giant fan of being denied the main way of fighting throughout the entire game. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do with this guy, but he's still as dumb as bricks, so we just run him around forever. Maybe like 10 minutes after this, we have another boss fight. This time it's Zombie Giga Chad Sam Witwer, who is really kind of easy. Dodge, slap, repeat. Unfortunately, Danny got her face slugged and is turning into a nasty little freak now. Final chapter time, and immediately we have another big gamer fight. Same old shit here, guys. Soon we're running through a medical type area, throwing dudes against spikes and dishing out tickles to anyone that gets in our way. And then we have another big gamer. This dude is way more cheesable than the other ones though, and it's just kind of hilarious at this point. How do you guys like this gameplay right now? Oh, so the point of all this is that we're trying to get Sam Witwer's juices out of him to cure Danny of the biophage. There's a bunch of story implications last minute here, and I'm sure there's the Callisto Protocol Explained video out there if you want to know exactly what's going on. All right, it's final boss time. Phase 1 is the same as the last time we fought Sam Witwer, who I should clarify now is called Captain Ferris in this game. Anyways, dodge and slap him. In Phase 2, he essentially turns into an off-brand Resident Evil tyrant. This phase is a little more of a hassle. First of all, if he hits you with his melee, you're dead, but it's actually pretty easy to dodge. He also spits now, but you can just hide behind stuff or juke him. So all you need to do here is shoot him in the face to hurt him. There's 4 explosive canisters, and you can just immediately blast those at him for some really good damage. He's actually pretty easy to loop once you get the hang of it. If he sprints at you, he's gonna swipe. Dodge whatever direction and then shoot him or run to get some distance. He'll either start running again, or if there's something between you two, he'll spit. Once you do enough damage, the little exploder dudes will spawn, and you can either avoid them or throw them at him. Supplies and health spawn all around the perimeter of this room, so go to town. Eventually, like all of us, he will die. Eat my ass! Eat my entire ass! We get some story stuff here, and then it's a small sprint to the final cutscene.
Jacob, there might be a way out after all.
No!
But I'm going to need your help.
They just really hit us with a Dead Space ending. And that's the Callisto Protocols. The protocol is about life achievement. The game took me about 12 hours to go through. Most of that time was because it was a completely blind first playthrough where I explored as much as I could. Once all those performance issues get fixed and the DLC difficulties out, I'm looking forward to playing it again. Obviously, this game had some pretty bad performance issues at launch, and it's a little worrying that this seems to be more and more common with new games. Hopefully, if you're seeing this in the future, that lots of these problems are fixed by now. And I think a big issue this game had is that a lot of people went in expecting a 1-to-1 to Dead Space. And to be fair, I could absolutely see the marketing setting that expectation. Personally, I had a blast, and I think that the game deserves a chance. I'm hoping that the DLC is solid and that a sequel is on the horizon eventually that just tightens everything up. As always, you can catch me attempting these live over on my Twitch channel, and I'm gonna get working on a VOD channel this month. Thanks for watching.